Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host for today's broadcast, Insane Leader 13. I do apologize for the relatively late start of tonight's broadcast, but we are here and beginning to set up the grid properly. Do want to real quickly give a quick shout out thanks to XR Monaco for performing pace car duties tonight. We're going to be looking at, like last week, a field that is a little bit more than twice the size, or almost twice the size of the field we had last night. Last night we had 11 drivers. It looks like tonight we're going to be looking at 17 drivers taking to the track today. Might be a little bit of a hiccup. We may have to do a lobby restart. I'm hoping not, but if we do, that will still give us a little bit more time to cover some of the pre-race, some of the more interesting pre-race topics here. Last week at Hockenheim, while it was green flag to flag, there was no shortage of issues, and a lot of penalties were handed out. So many penalties, in fact, that there are several drivers who are starting race 2 with a negative number of points at this stage of the season. Now, the proper points listing has not been updated in the Discord server, so I do not have access to the points as they stand right now, but in total, 22 points were removed due to post-race penalties after the development of last weekend's race at Hockenheim. Kylami, if any of you remember last season, was a similarly very chaotic, very aggressive race then. We are expecting to hopefully not replicate that, but it is very much in the table as a possibility. It looks like we have already lost at least one driver before this event has started. That was NDL Violet, who did show up for qualifying and qualified the top 5 positions. But our field does seem to be moving in regardless, which would drop us down. We seem to be down to maybe a 16-car grid now. So real quickly, your pole sitter is going to be Dex Twilight here in the 44, followed by Manuel Pedro, who put in a wicked fast lap late in qualifying to put his Rolex number 95 Ferrari second. Third is going to be Les Rogan, the Ford GT, and then the first repeat manufacturer's car rebuilt and another Ferrari. So 3 different manufacturers in the top 3 positions. After rebuilt, he'll be sharing that. He'll be ahead of Dex Kalula, who will be sharing row 3 with its Maze. Maze pulled off a second place result last night. He has led laps in both races last weekend and last night's race. It'd be interesting to see if we will see him lead laps in 4 consecutive events. After Maze is Agent Diesel, and then after Diesel is Tempered Ship here, and another one of the 4 GTs, followed by Little Kid Suave in the BMW, then Car Matthews in the Ford GT, followed by Yokumuku here, another one of the Chevys. After that is Breezy Rain in the Porsche, then TCPP Photo in his Bose BMW. After that will be Wiza 4, another one of the BMWs, then Capsule Healer in the Chevy, and Aero 592 here in that number 58 Porsche. So our ticker does seem to be hiccuping a little bit right now, but it does seem like we're going to get underway right away. So even though Violet did show up, qualified relatively well, last night they qualified well, but chose to start at the rear due to internet troubles. Today it seems like that they've qualified well, but they are choosing not to start this race at all, as they do not want to end up causing issues on track here. Again, we had 3 disconnects in last night's race, and that may have been partially caused by Violet's internet, so maybe it was a kind gesture. Regardless, though, our pace car, XR Monaco, pulls off, and the field doubles up as they come out of the final corner. It's going to be under foggy conditions, so visibility isn't going to be great, but you will be able to see the entire field all doubled up. 8 rows of 2 as they come to the start-finish line. Green flag, and we are underway for racing once again at Kylami. And look at Car Rebuilds trying to work it around the extreme outside. Rebuilds has gone from about 4th to 1st almost in just a lap, and they are 3 and 4 wide behind. Rebuilds trying to make the outside line work against Dex Twilight side by side in turn 1, and it looks like the majority of the field is going to get through turn 1 without any catastrophic issues, at least. Although there is a lot of door banging and banging, there's a lunge there by Car Matthew, and that is not Matthew. No, that was somebody else. But now we see 2 drivers go off. Little Kid Suave is one of them, and I think TCPP Photo is another one. Agent Diesel also went way off into the circuit in that 88. But at the front, Dex Twilight has recovered the lead back over Car Rebuilds. So it is a Ferrari running second, but it is not the Ferrari that qualified second. Car Rebuilds went from basically 4th to 2nd almost instantaneously. Now it's slotted ahead of the Ford GT of Les Railgun. After that is Dex Kalula here. Man, that ticker is really messing up, trying to tell me that I'm looking at drivers we're not right now. But that here, this is Mays working on Manuel Pedro, and then you have Tempered Chip just behind him. All nose to tail in this little group, just at the bottom of the top 5, in the middle of the top 10 right now. Off the mountain and into the last 3 corners. All 3 of these corners are extremely flat, but the curbs are very pronounced on the apex of the last 3 corners, all pronounced in distinctly different ways as well. Through this high-speed kink, you can hear the cars bouncing over the curbs, and it looks like Tempered Chip slid off circuit there, and Mays is going to miss the corner altogether. The final corner, now he's just ahead enough of Tempered Chip that's not going to compromise him too much, and already Dex Twilight is scooting away at the head of the field. Reminder, Dex Twilight started up at the front last week at Hockenheim, spun out, fell to last place, and then 10 laps was back to the lead. Now they already have roughly a 1-second lead over Car Rebuilds, and they're scooting away with speed right now. We'll take a look at the fuel load and tire choice a little bit later, but Dex Twilight right now seems to be head and shoulders above the rest of the grid in this season at least. Les Railgun, your defending series champion, hangs out in 3rd position right now, but this is only a 10-race season. You know, you have one race where you're behind a big rival. That's not too bad, but if your rival is this much faster, they can pull a second on you race after race after race without problem. Railgun needs to figure something else out and do that fast. Otherwise, Twilight is just going to annihilate any competitiveness left in either the Drivers' or Manufacturers' Championship. So Railgun in particular is going to be feeling a lot of pressure, but he cannot seem to get by Car Rebuilds. Give Rebuilds a little bit of a hit in the rear at the top of the mountain. But as they come downhill, the Ford GT still does not seem to have the sheer pace that it did last season. That's not to say it's not a good car, but it does not seem to have the pace it did last year. Somebody's just gone ghost mode back there. That was Dex Kalula, who seemed to have gone into ghost mode to avoid a contact with somebody else. That's going to let Manuel Pedro, another one of the Ferraris, scoot by now. Now he's got Mays right behind him. Mays hits the corner properly this time. So while Twilight is pulling a gap of more than the gap that Twilight is pulling on Rebuilds is more than a second a lap right now. Mind you, the difference between soft tires and medium tires around a track like Kylami is anticipated to be only about 0.9 of a second a lap. Even if Twilight is just running soft tires and everyone from Rebuilds down are running the mediums, Twilight is still going about 0.2 or so faster than the tire difference should suggest. So the race win, well, I'm not going to say it's locked up yet, because we saw last year a lot of yellow flags really shake up and randomize the strategy, but Twilight may have the sheer pace that all but the worst strategies may not cause them problems, and Car Rebuilds is completely sideways between turns 4 and 5. He's really struggling keeping the rear of that Ferrari under him. We've seen lots of times before where drivers seem to have trouble keeping the nose of the Ferrari planted on the car, but Rebuild seems to be sliding the rear of his Ferrari around a lot. The Ford of Les Railgun is still stuck right behind, but every time Rebuilds has these big twitches, Railgun is too far back to do anything. He gives that number 28 another little shove in the rear at the top of the mountain, but as they come back down the hill, gets nothing of it. Rebuild holding on to second for the moment, though. And Railgun does not seem to have the sheer pace necessary to get by Rebuilds. Again, you need to have a significant advantage in at least one corner to be able to pull off a move, and that just doesn't seem to be what we're seeing right now. Also, something else of note, Arrow592 qualified at the rear of the grid. He has moved his Porsche up into the 8th position. A lot of drivers do not feel that the Porsche in the GT3 Pro events is very competitive, but Arrow seems to be making something of it. Has gone from last to exactly the middle, so he has passed half the field in the first 4 laps, first 3 racing laps of the event. Real quick, let's go ahead and look at the tires and fuel allocation for our field right now. Already 19% wear here for Dex Twilight. I look at Car Rebuilds, who is in 2nd position. They are at 21% wear. So yeah, this is a nail in the coffin. There is no beating Twilight tonight as long as he doesn't lag out. 18% wear for Les Railgun, Manuel Pedro, who is the 2nd highest Ferrari, 20% wear right now. Dex Kalula Who's the next highest asted? 21% wear. Maze, who's in the highest of the Chevrolets right now, 20%, and that was a big moment there for Rebuilds. Rebuilds has let Railgun get through, and now Rebuilds almost let his teammate Manuel Pedro through. So while Car Rebuilds had that fantastic start, now he seems to be losing ground to the drivers around him. He's on the same tires, but really seems to be struggling with the handling of the car as he's bleeding away positions now. This is good news, though, for Les Railgun. They can try and focus forward and try to bang out some good laps, but with how quickly Dex Twilight has ran away from the rest of the field, I don't think that Railgun is going to catch Twilight anytime soon. So it does seem like the vast majority of the field is running the medium tires early on today. Now, last night, in the Porsche Cup race, the winning strategy was just 3 stints on the medium tires, pit on lap 13, pit on lap 26. Yes, you'd have quite a bit of tire fall off on lap 26, but it wouldn't be so bad that it would compromise your run for the rest of the night. We did see Maze do something a little bit different, ran 14 laps on the mediums and 10s on the softs later, and it did get him to a respectable second place, but not in a position where you could actually fight for anything. Manuel Pedro is giving Les Railgun a fight. So it looks like everyone in the field has basically given up on Dex Twilight. Everyone knows that there's no worry about fighting him. Twilight, by basically running almost a second a lap faster, lap after lap, there's just nothing you can do against him. So I guess the rest of the field has now conclusively agreed that it's better to fight for the positions they have now than to focus on lap time and try and run down Twilight at the head of the field. Top of the mountain now. And now they begin firing it back downhill once again. A lot of the drivers in the top 6 positions are the same 6 drivers we saw near the head of the grid back at Hockenheim. But at the end of 5 racing laps, Twilight leads by over 5 seconds. So at this rate, Twilight will likely be leading by about 35 to 40 seconds by the end of this race. Assuming he doesn't get onto a poor strategy, that's going to be rough. The big question, of course, will be, will Twilight catch traffic? It is hard to overtake here, but if you're going to be running 2 to 3 seconds a lap faster than the drivers at the rear of the grid, traffic's not really going to be an issue. That's literally just make a big dive bomb in a corner and then just be gone from them by the time you get to the next corner. Railgun still holding on to second, but Manuel Pedro in the Ferrari continues to harass in third. Big slide from the rear tires there from Railgun. And you can see Car Rebuilds there, fourth. He's third in this line of cars, still struggling to keep the rear of that Ferrari under him. So they may have gone for a setup that is very high on the front downforce, but very low on the rear downforce in the Ferraris, which would explain why Car Rebuilds was able to outrun basically everyone down to turn 1, but why his handling, especially the rear, seems to not be there. Contact there between Railgun and Pedro really had to back out, as now they begin rushing uphill. Now Pedro has Rebuilds right behind him, but I don't think Rebuilds is in a position to go for a move. He does lunge in a bit, make a small amount of contact with his teammate, but nothing really comes of it this time by. Back downhill once again now. Aero 592 seems to have dropped some of those positions he picked up. He has gone back to 10th position now. Still, Dex Twilight continues to extend his lead over the rest of the field at this rate of about 1 extra second per lap. Another interesting slide farther back there. To come out of the final corner, Les Railgun continues to hold on to second position. And now, that Ford GT along with these 2 Ferraris are starting to pull away from this group back here with Dex Klula and Maze. And then Tempered Chip is a little bit farther back from them, kind of in no man's land. And then is a massive gap back here to Wiza 4. He's at 31% tire wear. Important thing to remember, last night we realized that the soft tire compounds seem to have what it takes to go only 8 laps although you could push it 9 laps and maybe 10 laps if you really need to, but it's an 8-lap ideals for the soft tires. If you want to run the medium tires, 12 laps is ideal, but you can push them out to 13 or 14 laps. Hards, we would assume, would go out to 16, but the lack of grips generally in the hards in this series means that no one's likely going to run that. So, if anyone is running the soft tires right now and are really aggressive on the usage of their tires, they will have gone through about what would be the equivalent of 7.5 racing laps. Not quite 8, but about 7.5 racing laps. So anyone on the soft tires will be paying this lap or the next lap. And Pedro has gotten by Manuel Pedro at the top of the mountain. Top of the mountain, and the Ferrari Manuel Pedro moves back up into second position, which is where he qualified. Well, a lot closer where he qualified. Big slide in the dirt there by car rebuilds farther back. Yeah, Pedro is now back where he's qualified. In fact, if you look at the ticker, our top 6 are all running exactly in the positions they qualified in. They didn't end lap 1 there, but it seems like the pace of the race is very similar to the single lap pace that we were seeing earlier. Aero 592 in 10th is now pitting, so maybe that was a big reason why he was able to pick up all those positions earlier if he ran the soft tires early on. So that'll drop him out of the top 10. No one else has joined him in the pit road, though. On our 8th racing lap right now, and Dex Twilight just continues to plug away from the rest of the field. Car rebuilds has now just about been caught by Dex Kalula. And again, Mays is right behind, but Mays in that Chevy seems to be struggling with the overall capability of Chevys. The Chevys do look a little bit stronger this year than what we saw last season. Last season, the Chevys frequently came to races with no pace whatsoever, and Mays and his teammates were just relying on yellow flag chaos and strategies to get results. Mays seems to be a lot more competitive in that Chevrolet this season. But if there aren't any yellow flags to capitalize on, and there's not really a way to deviate strategy, it's going to be a lot harder to make anything of it for Mays. If you think Railgun is frustrated seeing Dex Twilight just destroying him on track like this, I imagine Mays is going to feel that frustration compounded. Again, Mays came home second in the championship last year, and his team came so close but so far from winning the Manufacturers' Championship as well. But right now, it seems like those Ferraris of Rebuilds and Pedro are way faster than the Chevys, and then all the other fast drivers are still at the level or above Mays right now as well. Manuel Pedro is scooting away from Les Railgun with speed. Does Pedro potentially have something for Dex Twilight? Ferrari runs a little bit wide there as he gets touched by Kalula up through turn 2 and 3 now. Rebuild's really struggling keeping the rear of that Ferrari underneath him. Tempered Chip continues to hang out in the background there, but there's the move to the inside is Kalula and clears Rebuilds. Rebuilds just cannot keep the car on the ideal lanes, even in the slower corners. And for the Ferrari drivers, you have to think, oh goodness, if they're struggling this much right now, how much worse is it going to be if they get onto a circuit with more downforce focus, somewhere like a Spa or a Silverstone? Those Ferraris are going to be absolutely cooked. If they're struggling to keep the car on the ideal racing line now, it's going to be so much worse later in the season on the more aerodynamically focused circuits. So Kalula now gets by Rebuilds. Rebuilds' next threat will be from Mays, but Mays seems to have tapered off just a little bit. He's fast enough to keep touch, but maybe not fast enough to make moves on his own. Pedro has absolutely gapped Les Railgun, though, for position. So Manuel Pedro now confidently in second. And as we have completed 9 racing laps thus far, Pedro has cut the gap down to about 7 seconds between himself and Dex Twilight. So Twilight has stopped massively opening the gap, but that is still a very significant gap. And if we stay green and clean to the end of this race, I'm still not sure that Pedro will actually have anything for Dex Twilight. Again, time penalties will have something to play into it as well, and that was something we had to talk about before also. Our rebuilds still harassing Dex Kalula. So Kalula has gotten the position, but rebuilds. Oh, there it is! There's that big slide from rebuilds that we were expecting. And one of the two more downforce focused sections of the circuit, and now Maze is right behind him. The Ferrari drops tires in the dirt. The Chevy has great power, great straight line capability. But there's really only two sections on the circuit you can take advantage of that here, although he's trying to make it somewhere else. Here's Rebuilds. He's wide again. May's going to be trapped on the outside as they're rushing up to the top of the mountain this time by. Rebuilds tries to brake. You can just see the car just locks up and slides off the line, and Maze goes right by. I mean, Maze did a good job capitalizing, but Rebuilds just is having an awful time in this Ferrari right now. And again, the entire car just seems to be swapping sides on him corner after corner as the tires are going away. The handling in that Ferrari is getting so much worse. He's at 57% tire life already. Just for comparison, your leader, Dex Twilight, is only at 54%, and Manuel Pedro, who is the teammate in the Ferrari, is only at 54%. Wiza and Lil Kid Suave pit at the end of lap 12. They are joined by TCPP Photo. So those are a lot of drivers farther back in the grid. Not only do they not have pace, they are not happy with the wear of the tires. So I don't think we're going to see anybody in the back of the grid making some wild alternate strategy work. They seem to be struggling more on tires than most of the other drivers on track. But car rebuilds has now fallen out of the top 5. The one-lap pace seems to be respectable on fresh tires. The straight line speed seems to be respectable. But car rebuilds cannot keep the car under him at all as the tires fall off. He's going to have to pit at the end of this lap after only what would be 11 and a half laps worth of racing. I mean, you really need to go 12 to 13 on this first stint. For rebuilds, I feel it might be a better option to go ahead and just try to run soft tires to the end of this race, maybe, just to try and grab a little bit of extra speed out of this, because the handling just keeps getting worse and worse as he's deep into the dirt, and now Tempered Chip flies by with no issues. Now, next driver that rebuilds would be caught by would be Car Matthews, but Matthews is way back here in 8th position here in the Ford GT, and he doesn't have the fuel to do anything, so maybe for now, Car Rebuilds can stem the bleeding, but still, going from side-by-side for lead going into turn 1 to falling all the way to 7th in the first tire stint, that is nothing but bad news there. All right, Dex Twilight is staying out another lap, but Manuel Pedro pinning at the end of lap 12, so Pedro is not willing to push the tires as deep as he may need to make it a simple 2-stop race. Dex Twilight, though, not confirmed, and Les Railgun is also going to stay out a little bit longer. So does Dex Kalula, and Maze, and Tempered Chip. Manuel Pedro, of course, car rebuilds all had to pit, especially rebuilds. So the Ferraris do not have the tire longevity that they feel that they need. But now everyone's staying out right now, we believe are absolutely locked into a 2-stop strategy. Pit on lap 13, then pit on lap 26, and you'll be good to the end. Kalula just barely staying ahead of Maze right now, but it's not nearly as aggressive between these two as it was earlier. So these four, and then Tempered Chip a little bit farther back in 5th, I would argue are in the best position strategy-wise. Track position-wise, though, I think we will see Manuel Pedro end up well ahead of Les Railgun on circuit. The undercut, which is what you call pitting early, showed to be very competent last night in the Porsche Cup race. So I imagine Manuel Pedro, if he's not held up by Yokomuku here, Manuel Pedro should end up ahead of Les Railgun by a significant margin, but will then have a tire disadvantage that he will be nursing for most of the rest of this tire stint. But no, it looks like Pedro is being held up by Yokomuku quite a bit right now. And if you think he's being held up, car rebuild stuck right in the middle of the field as well. Here's the move. Pedro to the inside of Yokomuku. Clears him without too much issue. And Twilight is in the pits this time by. He'll be joined by Railgun, Kalula, likely Maze as well, I'd imagine. No, Maze is staying out. So last night, Maze ran a strategy, medium, softs, went very deep into the run on the mediums. Is he trying to do the same thing again tonight? Well, either way, Mays officially leads the lap, so regardless of anything else, Mays has led at least one lap in 4 straight X League events. A very strange statistic to have, but it is something that Mays continues to hold at this stage of the season. Dex Twilight will unsurprisingly take second place. He is so far ahead of everyone else, so it just doesn't really matter. Railgun is going to be just a little bit ahead of Yokumuku here. Wait, is Muku also on the same strat? Yeah, Yokumuku is also doing the 14-lap run strat. Now, it looks like weather conditions are starting to change just a little bit here as well. So no rain today, but the race started in heavy fog conditions, and now we are seeing the fog starting to lift a bit. That means the track will get a little bit more heat in it. It will make bringing the tires up to temperature a little bit easier, but also means that the tires will likely burn off a bit faster. And around the outside, Kalula walks by Yokomuku as if he's standing still. Again, brand new fresh tires for for Dex Kalula. And Yokomuku here, his tires in the 70%. Yeah, he's at 69% right now. I look at Mays, who is leading at the moment, although he'll be pitting at the end of this lap, I imagine. He's at 66% wear on the tires. Well, Mays said that he wasn't very happy with the strategy last night. And look at this, he's going another lap. So Mays is going to be putting the equivalent of 14 and a half laps of laps ran on these tires. Really trying to pursue a massive tire advantage going forward, but he's going to have a massive track position disadvantage. And Yokomuku, his teammate in the Chevy, is jumping into the pits this lap. So Mays is the only one right now going on this ultra long strategy. If you look at the ticker, we'll swap it to pit stops. Him and Breezy Rain are the only drivers who have yet to make their first stop. And Breezy Rain, mind you, is this Breezy Rain? Yeah, Breezy Rain is another one of the drivers in the Porsche. He is on the hard tires by the look of it. So Breezy Rain, trying to make something happen on the hard tires by the looks of it, will likely be going 16, 17, 18 laps into this event. Yeah, we're not looking at photos. This is definitely Breezy Rain. Okay. So yeah, Breezy Rain running on the hard tires, trying to minimize time spent on pit road, I guess. Breezy Rain took pole in last night's Porsche Cup race, but slipped to third over the course of the event. They felt that there just wasn't a lot to do. They were another driver who said, look, the Porsche is just not competitive in the GT3 races, but Breezy Rain is only not to 7th right now on these old hard tires. Well, he's obviously making something work out of it. Bad news for Mays, though. Dex Twilight has just about caught him, despite the fact that Twilight's already made a pit stop. Yeah, 70.7%. He has to come this time by. And he'll finally pit, so Twilight was able to run down Mays and retake the lead himself. So, yeah, whatever strategy Mays has gone on, he has lost an absurd amount of ground. He is going to likely fall into this group with the likes of, well, he probably will fall behind this group with Kalula, Rebuilt, Breezy Rain. He might end up back here with Lil Kid Suave, honestly. In the BMW camp, Suave and Wiza teammates in both Porsche Cup and GT. Well, there's a little bit of side-by-side action there. That's Breezy Rain, Tempered Chip. And yeah, he's going to end up behind the BMWs as well by the looks of it. So Mays went plenty long on the tires. He'll have a massive tire life advantage, but he has fallen all the way back to 10th position. The only driver he's really ahead of right now is Carr Matthews. Again, Mays, big tire advantage basically for the rest of this race now. But the track position disadvantage is going to be killer. Again, he was running around the 5th or 6th position before this. He's now about 7 seconds out of that. Might be more than that, because that is Matthews working around the outside, and he'll have the inside line going to the next corner. So yeah, another position loss for Mays now as he's struggling to get the tires back up to temp. I mean, you gotta give him the man credit for doing something unique, actually trying and pushing for something unique and different. No one else is doing that, but Any shot that Maze may have had at the championship, if Dex Twilight had something go wrong, may have been torpedoed off the back of that. And speaking of which, your leader is still Dex Twilight, leading by a massive margin. 16 laps into our race at Kylami. We're going to go ahead and take a Twitch main daily break and spin the lap on board with our dominant leading driver here at Kylami. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Kylami. One thing I had not noticed is that the pace in the GT3 cars is much faster than what we seem to have in the Porsche Cup. Last night in the Porsche Cup, a lap seemed to take about a minute and 45 seconds. I think tonight it's closer to about a minute and 40 right now. Manuel Pedro holds out in second position right now. He is at a slight tire disadvantage, but he's been the only driver able to sort of hang up with Twilight and pace today. But he pitted a lap earlier than Twilight. Twilight, we know, can comfortably make it to the end. Well, not comfortably, but should be able to make it to the end on tires without too much issue after stopping on lap 26. Manuel Pedro, though, not looking likely that he'll be able to do the same thing. But he does have a massive gap over third place, who is Les Railgun. My controller is dying on me. Alright, well, that's annoying. That. Our third place driver is Les Railgun. Oh no. Oh no, my controller is dead. My controller has completely died on me. I don't know if you're actually hearing this, but I can no longer do anything on my controller. It has bit the dust. I'm going to try and swap controllers here real quick. Give me a second. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I am back. I have swapped controllers. So it seems like the controller that came with my Xbox One about 3 years ago is now dead after pretty heavy use, so I guess I had a good run. Les Railgun is in third position, pretty much in no man's land. Dex Klula has moved clear past Rebuilds, is running in fourth position. Rebuilds runs fifth. Little Kid Suave has worked their way into the sixth position at this stage of the race on an alternate strategy. I believe they may have put on soft tires. after their first pit stop, so they've moved up quite a bit of ground on circuit, but they're going to be pitting sooner rather than later. Behind them is Wiza 4. Wiza 4 running behind the Ford GTs, a Tempered Chip and Car Matthews. Tempered Chip slower than Cars Matthew over a single lap, but not Matthews. Tempered Chip seemed to be faster than Matthews over the course of the race, but they now have caught each other. Again, I have to wonder if maybe Tempered Chip is another driver that may have elected to jump onto the softer compound tires. No, only 27% wear on Chip. I look at Car Matthews. Oh, no, it's Matthews who's jumped onto the soft tire. So that's how Matthews has caught Chip. I thought maybe Chip jumped onto the soft tires and fell down the grid, but no. Matthews has jumped onto a softer compound tire, used that to hustle his way up the grid a bit. So some drivers in the midfield jumping onto the softs, just trying to pull out some semblance of time, but the strategy is just going to come back and bite them, it feels. Breezy Rain paying back there in 12th, so he has finally completed his run on the mediums, I believe, on the hard tires. So I believe, if I look at their telemetry, it's already readjusted their tire life, but that should be the only pit stop Breezy Rain will likely make over the course of the race. Thing is, he's just so far off pace, there might be a risk that he falls a lap down to our leader, Dex Twilight. Track conditions have changed a bit. I'm interested here to see how long Lil Kid Suave and Tempered Chip are both able and willing to stay out. And then this group is running just a little bit ahead of Maze, who has a gigantic tire advantage over the rest of the field, but has a gigantic track position disadvantage against the drivers he had been fighting with earlier. Maze ran 14 laps on the tires last night on the mediums, then did that again later, and then ran 10 laps on the softs late in the event. Today, he's done 15 laps on the mediums. Might try to go 14 laps again on the mediums this stint, and then do only 9 laps on the softs near the end. But again, so much time has been lost, especially now that he is caught behind slower cars. I just can't see any scenario that this has worked out in any positive way for Maze. Lil Kid Suave and Cars Matthew and Wiza all pitting this time by. So that makes things a little bit easier now for Maze. Several of the drivers he has held up behind pits, but that doesn't negate the fact that he's lost a lot of lap time being caught behind slower cars for so long. And the drivers he had been fighting have all kind of spread out amongst themselves. They're not really fighting for position between each other anymore. Those drivers coming out of the pits right now, 2 BMWs and a Ford. Car Matthews immediately veers off circuit. And it looks like that may have been Wiza behind you, also did the same. So I guess Wiza and Lil Kid Suave both jumped on the soft tires that time by. Again, softer tires means faster lap time, but you will be making more than likely 1, maybe 2 extra pit stops over the course of the race. And we still have 17 laps to go. We're only about 55% of the way through this event. So no, if you're pitting now, you're still committing to making at least one more stop over the rest of this race. Well, I take a look now at Tempered Chip, running in 6th position right now in the Ford GT. They have gone medium-medium. They are at a, what we believe is a tire disadvantage to Maze. Is at 29% wear. Wait, Tempered Chip is at 38% wear. Okay. So yeah, that's roughly equivalent to what it should be then. So right now, Maze isn't going to have a ridiculous advantage over Tempered Chip. The big difference in tire life advantage really shows up once you get to the 40, 50, 60% range. So for right now, I don't think we'll see any big differences there. Capsule Healer suddenly dropping ground in the Chevy. Not really talked about him. He ran last night's race, was last, but still came home 8th after capitalizing on other drivers' disconnects. Right now, he seems to be having a little bit more interesting race than he did last night. Last night, he spent most of the race by himself. Today, he actually seems to be spending some time with other drivers on circuit. I want to take a look real quickly at the Ferraris. This is car rebuilds here in the Ferrari. 50% wear already in the rear tires. He's only got 3 seconds over tempered chip right now, and then Mays would go right by him afterwards. So if car rebuilds is going to start falling off the way he did last stint, he could fall way down the order again. Then you have Manuel Pedro right in second, the other Ferrari driver right now. Qualified second, running second. He's only at 50% wear despite being much deeper into the run. So whatever Pedro is doing is much smoother on the tires. Yokumuku pitting now. So it appeared to me that Yokumuku is only able to make the medium tires go about 11 laps, is not confident in making them go 12 laps, let alone the 13 that you think will be necessary, that we think will be necessary for many of the drivers out here. I'll look at Dex Twilight, your leader. 47, 48% tire wear right now, so he should be fine on tires to the end. The only driver even remotely in his zip code and pace is Manuel Pedro, but Pedro is behind the 8 ball so much in just gap and also behind the 8 ball in tire strategy. So Twilight, even if they've mistimed their strategy a bit, should still have more than enough of a gap to clear the grid. Really, it seems like Twilight's only big competition was in the first 3 quarters, and after that, he has been gone. The question is really just a matter of how long until they catch traffic. This is Breezy Rain in that case, who runs 16th and last on track, but we believe they're doing a one-stop strategy, hard tire to hard tire. It's a bold strategy, and I have seen hard tire strats get drivers some ground before, but it's very rare. And check this out, coming out of the mountain, it looks like Mays has mustered his way by tempered chip here. So now the tire advantage is starting to come back into Mays' favor. Now he'll end up well behind his rivals on track when they all make a pit stop, but Mays is going to end up likely being able to throw on some soft tires late. Let's go ahead and look at the time penalties earned at this stage of the race right now. Big news for Mays. No time penalties right now. For everyone else, they are looking at quite a bit of time penalties. 5 seconds for Twilight, 6.7 for Manuel Pedro, only 2 for Railgun, 5.7 seconds for Kalula, 2.2 for Car Rebuilds. And like I said, Mays, nothing. Tempership and Cars Matthews, 1.9 seconds of time penalties each. Agent Diesel in 9th, 5.7 seconds. Wiza 4 has 1.3, Lil Kid Suave 3.2. Capsule Healer 2.8, TCPP Photo 3.2, and then Arrow, Yokumuku, and Breezy Rain all have about 1 second exactly. Breezy Rain actually at 1.1 second. But yeah, okay, so Mays doing something a little bit interesting here by being able to keep this race going with no time penalties thus far. If we get a late yellow, he could be positioning himself for some free extra positions, but even ignoring that, just off the back of time penalties and maybe having a big tire advantage to the end of this race, he might be able to steal some extra spots. Manuel Pedro paying out a second. So yeah, Pedro could not go to lap 26. So Pedro's going to have to go 13 laps. Right, 26, 27, 28, and then add to, yeah, he's going to have to go 13 laps on the final stint here. Oh, wow. Was that tempered chip going into the dirt? I think it was. I think that 4GT went deep into the dirt there. Staying on track for the moment, though. Car Rebuilds did pit, and Manuel Pedro has pitted also, and surprisingly, Mays has actually ended up ahead of Manuel Pedro after it all. Now, granted, Pedro has now made 2 stops. Mays has only made 1. But still, that's a pretty interesting circumstance to be in for Mays. Because Pedro is going to have to be careful and manage his tires to the end here. Mays does not have to worry about that. Gap between Twilight and Railgun on track, 18.5 seconds right now. They are barely in the same section of the circuit for multiple laps here. Arrow and Capsule Hill are making a stop, so something has happened to Arrow to warrant a pit stop here. So, by default, Arrow and Capsule Hill are both going to go a lap down, but I don't see any movement from the pace car, so whatever has happened, I don't think it's going to warrant a yellow. Real quick checking on the pace car, has it moved? No sign of movement from XR Monaco, so whatever has happened with Arrow and Breezy Rain must not have warranted the yellow flag, so we stay green right now. So Mays on old medium tires, Manuel Pedro on fresh medium tires. But both these drivers may encounter each other again later in the event, because yes, Mays has to pit, but when he makes his stop, he's going to be behind Pedro, but will be way faster, and critically does not have time penalties. Pedro has a significant accruement of time penalties at this stage of the event. Mays goes to the inside, and Pedro's going to follow suit. And yeah, those Ferraris seem to have some fantastic straight line speed. I think they were running a very low rear downforce setup to give them all this straight line speed. And while the Chevys last year were very good in the straight line, they don't seem to have anything to the Ferraris right now, especially with that draft helping them. So Pedro clears Mays pretty much as if he was standing still. But again, Mays is looking to have a massive tire advantage to the end of this race. And Pedro just needs to push hard now to try and outrun not only a tire fall-off, but also a time penalty. Dex Twilight, we anticipate, will be pitting at the end of this lap. 64% on the tires. He has the fuel to go an extra lap if he so wanted. Ooh, it dropped into the dirt. So a small mistake from Twilight late, but it's not really going to matter. This is Les Railgun in second. 62% tire wear in the rear. So another car that we think may be running a low rear downforce setup. And you have Dex Kalula, another one of those Astons, running a quiet but consistent third. Does not have anything close to the speed that Twilight has. And yes, Twilight did jump into the pits as anticipated. I imagine first, second, third, all are going to pit this time, and Twilight has enough of a gap on Manuel Pedro that he'll still be leading when this is over. So yeah, all things considered, doesn't matter how you look at it, Twilight and Mays are the only two drivers who have led laps in this race. And Twilight is on track to lead all laps but one today. Well, technically 2 or 3, I believe. But yeah, Twilight has led all but a few laps today. Interesting. So yeah, while Mays has only won a single event of the 4 that has started this season, this summer season for X League, he has led laps in all events, and Twilight has led laps in both of the events that they have started now. And Manuel Pedro has absolutely gapped Mays on circuit right now. And again, he's going to continue to gap Mays, and Mays is going to fall likely about 30 seconds out from Pedro. But Pedro's not paying again to the end. He's going to be dealing with some massive tire fall off late. Mays, on the other hoof, is going to have a massive tire advantage later in the event. Or not. Maybe Pedro's doing something different. Is Pedro committing to 2 runs on the soft tire late in the event, maybe? That has a lot more wear on the tires than I think he would have. I'll keep an eye on that, but I think Pedro put on the mediums and is just going to be trying to nurse them. Well, most of the field has gotten really spread out. The closest thing we have to a battle right now is a stalking scenario between Wiza 4 and Lil Kid Suave. But between these duo, I think it is pretty well established that Wiza is a top dog in this fight, and there's not really a lot of incentive to fight between them. So, coming down to about 11 laps left, we're going to go ahead and take another Twitch mandated ad break. And while we do, we are going to ride on board with the Ferrari of Manuel Pedro. Big slide in the dirt there, but we're going to spin a lap on board Manuel Pedro as he tries to do something to Dex Twilight late in the event here at Kylami. We'll be back shortly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back already to Kylami. I am convinced now that Pedro has thrown on the soft tires. So Pedro and Mays, running second and third, are both committing to one more stop before this race is over. Mays is likely going to stop with about 9 laps or so left to throw on the softs. We don't know when Pedro is going to stop. But Pedro is burning down the nicotine more to try and close in on Twilight. This is the closest that Twilight has had to competition all day today. Car rebuilds, the other Ferrari pitting farther back there in 9th. But Pedro is trying to do something different, anything different. And I don't know how this is going to work out, because the big thing is, Pedro, we thought was going to be fine with Mays for second, potentially. But if Pedro is on the softs now, and he makes another pit stop and throws on the softs again, he's going to have no tire fall off whatsoever. Mays only has to pit one more time, throw on the softs. He won't have too much fall off there. But Mays is dealing with a massive amount of tire fall off right now as he is running worn out mediums. So this strategy might not be enough for Pedro to do anything to Twilight, because Twilight does not have to pit to the end of this race. But it may be enough for Pedro to massively gap Mays before this event is over. Railgun runs in 4th. Dex Kalula runs in 5th. Railgun and Kalula, we believe, are easily going to stay 4th and 5th bare minimum, barring some sort of catastrophe. But Pedro and Mays both having to pit again is going to put the two of them behind Railgun and Kalula. And it'll be interesting to see if either Pedro or Mays can do anything to him. Mays is pitting now, so Mays is pitting with 9 laps left. Last night, it was 10 laps left in the Porsche Cup when he finally elected to pit. This night, he is doing only 9 laps on the final set of sauce, so he's put himself well behind the 8 ball in track position by running 15 laps on the mediums earlier in the race. But he's now on softs to the end. Cars Matthews is going to join him, as will Wiza and Little Kid Suave. So a bunch of drivers all jumping onto the softs late in the event, potentially hoping that maybe if there is a late race yellow, being on the softs will give them track position and speed late in the running here. 9 laps is a lot to ask out of the softer tires. But you gotta do something now. And if there is a yellow, you're likely gonna see 2 to 3 laps of racing cut out, just trying to get the field all gathered back up. The field is very spread out this late in the going. But we're still watching Manuel Pedro as he is running down Dex Twilight. Again, alternate strategy. We don't think that Pedro is really in a position to fight Twilight for this race win. But we think that he is trying to outrun Mays and outrun Railgun and outrun Kalula to hold second position, even with his massive accruement of time penalties at this stage of the event. So we're going to be here on track to the checkered flag for this race. We will not leave again unless there's a yellow flag. If we stay green to the end, we're going to be here to the end of this. Pedro within 2 seconds of Twilight. This is the closest anyone has been to Twilight on track since lap 2. So does Twilight know that the Ferrari is planning to make another stop? And of course, the other question is, when will Pedro make another stop? If he makes a stop at the end of this lap, he'd have 7 laps on the softs. So again, the ball would be back in his favor. He'll have no real tire fall off to the end here. But Mays is putting down some fast laps now in pretty darn clean air. In fact, Mays is in a fantastic position with clean air right now. He's got 14 seconds between himself and Dex Kalula right now. Again, Mays does not necessarily have to catch the likes of Railgun and Kalula on track. Time penalties may do the work for him. Same cannot be said, though, for Manuel Pedro. Now 1.1 seconds out from Twilight. If he gets a shot, does he muscle his way by and try to lead laps late? And what of Dex Twilight? This is the first time he has really been harassed. Pedro seems to have his Twilight's pace generally when they're both on the same tires. Now that Pedro is on the softs, he is running him down. Almost within drafting range this time by. But you'd think for Pedro, he'll pit now so he doesn't deal with any fall off on the tires. Surely he'll pit this time, right? Arrow making another pit stop now. So a bad day going worse for Arrow. And yes, Pedro is pitting this time by. So Dex Twilight will stay unmolested for the rest of this race. The question is going to be, where is Pedro going to end up in relation to this man here? Mays in the Chevrolet. We believe that Pedro should be well ahead of Mays and should have a significant tire advantage over Mays for the rest of this run. And yeah, Pedro already coming out of pit lane. A little bit slowly, but he is still already coming out of pit lane. He's going to be behind Railgun, behind Kalula. But he's going to have an immediate tire advantage, so Pedro might still be able to rush his way back into second position. It looks like Arrow 592 has been our first DNF of the race. We'll try to reach out to Arrow, see if he has anything he wants to say here. Capsule Healer pitting farther back there, so that will be another driver likely throwing on the softs at the end of this. All right, coming to the party right now is Arrow 592. Arrow, can you hear me? Can you include your audio in the Xbox party?
You were commentating?
Yes, I'm the commentator.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go ahead and include your audio if you can.
I did.
What happened that took you out of the event there?
I was coming out of the last turn and I spun out and I had severe damage. I was able to make it around back, expecting a safety car, but I guess safety car guy wasn't paying attention. I don't know. So yeah, I just when I came out of the pits, I was like, yeah, there's no point, so I just retired.
Yeah, fair enough. With 16 cars today, you're basically guaranteed last place points anyway. Correct me if I'm wrong, you ran the hard tires at the start of the race, though, didn't you? Were you on a one-stop strategy?
That wasn't me. That was my teammate. That was Breezy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got the Porsches confused. I've been spending a lot of time looking up near the front, so I do apologize for that. Is there anything else you do want to say, though, Arrow, before we let you go for the night?
No, man. Shit. It was a good race. I got engine damage on the start, so it kind of messed me up because I was 18th, and then coming out to the first couple turns, I was already up in 8th. So just hope the next time safety car guy pay attention to bring out a safety car.
All right. Well, that's the word from Arrow.
Or get someone in place to do it. Other than that, it's pretty good.
All right. Well, that's the word from Arrow. Frustrating race ends early for him. And now I want to talk with Wiza4, one of our BMW entrants. Wiza, go ahead and include your audio. What took you out of the race so late in the running?
I just got disconnected, man. I was I was not that far behind Mateus. I was hoping he was going to get another penalty, so I can probably snag 8 from him, but I got disconnected, unfortunately.
Frustrating to say the least. Your teammate Lil Kid Suave is still out there. do you think there's anything else that you guys in the BMW camp could really do differently to fight farther up the grid?
Right now, I think it's sort of set in stone on where they're at, unless Photo can pass Yoko Muku right now. But that's about it. I don't think anything else is going to change.
All right. Yeah, I have nothing else really to ask. Do you have anything else you want to say before we let you go for the night?
Not really. I started lower than where I was potentially going to finish, though. I would have been happy about that. But it didn't happen.
All right, well, thanks for jumping in and talking with us. And while we have been doing these interviews, another dramatic change. Dex Kalula, who looked like they were on track for a top 5 result, has suddenly disconnected shortly after being passed by Manuel Pedro. So Dex Kalula, one of our fastest drivers, are suddenly out of it. This also might change the complexity of the Manufacturers' Championship as well, because Kalula is Twilight's teammate in the Aston Martin, but now with only one Aston up near the head of the field, and Kalula being not classified at the end, that is going to massively upend Kalula's run here and massively upend the Manufacturers' Championship potentially. This also puts a lot less stress on Manuel Pedro, because now he only has one more driver to pass, and Mays, who's in 4th, is still 12 seconds behind and has a tire disadvantage against Pedro. So Pedro almost guaranteed a 3rd place result here, and he only has to get by Railgun. Now, when he catches Railgun, he has to get way ahead of Railgun. I don't see that happening, but he only has to get ahead of Railgun. And for Mays, that strategy of his is not going to see him be in position to fight for a podium. Farther back, looking at penalties between Tempered Ship and Cars Matthew, I think Tempered Ship is just far enough ahead of Cars Matthew that Ship might be able to pull off a 5th place result. But yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to have any major changes in the field near the end here, unless Manuel Pedro just absolutely decimates Railgun here near the end. I don't know if that's going to happen. We are on 3.5 laps left here. Breezy Rain runs in 12th position. Not yet a lap down. We might see Breezy Rain make it to the end without going a lap down on this, what seems to be what I think is a one-stop strategy. No, Breezy Rain has made 2 more stops since. Okay, never mind then. I'm getting all sorts of crap confused, and I do apologize for that. So with the late disconnect from Kalula and Wiza, this bumps Suave up to 8th, Yokonuku up to 9th, TCPP Photo up to 10th. There comes the move by Pedro. Dives in deep by Railgun. Now Railgun's got to cross him over on exit, but the Ferrari has plenty of grip to hold it side by side. Who backs out through here? Neither of them are backing out, and somehow they'll barely keep it on track, and Pedro is clear of Railgun. But again, time penalties is a big thing to consider. Pedro only has 3 laps to try and outrun his time penalties on Railgun. And that is a gap of about 5 seconds. So Pedro has to get 5 seconds ahead of Railgun in 3 laps if he wants to salvage his 2nd place result. Now those tires shouldn't have too much fall off though. Yeah, he's not really going to have any real bad fall off here. And Railgun is on these worn out medium tires. Now his fall's not going to be awful, but he is going to be he's already slow and will continue to get slower. Pedro is fast and is not going to lose any of his pace. So Pedro might be able to make this extra pit stop strategy work enough to get him a 2nd place result. Well, he is pulling on Railgun, but I do not think he's pulling on Railgun fast enough right now. Frustrating, I feel, for Kalula and that entire Aston Martin team in general. While it wasn't going to be a pair of podium results, it did look like they were going to get 1st and 4th. So right now, when you look at the grid, the first repeat manufacturer is Ford. And they have Les Railgun 3rd, Tempered Ship 5th, and then Cars Matthews in 6th. So now Ford is the first repeat manufacturer. For the Ferraris, you have 2nd and 7th, and then for Mays and the Chevy, you have him in 4th, and then you have to go all the way down to Yokomuku back there in 9th. Okay, 2 laps left now for Pedro and Railgun, and that gap is now 3 seconds already. Am I seeing this right? I'm not. It's 2 seconds. Okay, never mind. Still might be possible for Pedro to outrun the time penalties against Railgun, though, and steal 2nd from him. Especially as Railgun is only going to continue to get slower as his tires are falling off. There is a possibility that the other 2 drivers in the Ford camp, Cars Matthew and Tempered Chip, will go back at it again with each other here in these closing moments. Well, there it is. Big self-inflicted mistake there by Tempered Chip. Chip is at 48% tire wear right now. I'm sorry, did he have engine damage? Nope, but he's at he's hot in the high 40s with his tire wear, and Cars Matthew, who runs just behind, has even more tire wear though. So Matthews has caught Tempered Chip, but has a tire life disadvantage to him. With a lap and a half left, it's going to be really hard to make the pass and then make it stick. Sure, you might be able to go for a big dive somewhere, but actually staying ahead is going to be a lot more difficult. Here we go. Ford looking to the outside as they come to the top of the mountain. But the 91 backs off enough. Doesn't want to be side by side, I guess, in that hairpin. Now they rush it back downhill. Seems to be content to staying in the draft for now. Is Cars Matthew. Pedro absolutely destroying Railgun. 1 lap left for our leaders. There we are, side by side for 4 GTs. 21, 91 on top of it. 21 still stays ahead of the 91 for a bit longer. Slide there. Bit of a slide by Matthews, but he keeps it on circuit for now. Again, between the 2 of them, Tempered Chip has fewer penalties as well, so it may not matter. Penalties may still decide this in Tempered Chip's favor, even if Matthews does get by him. Manuel Pedro hangs out in 2nd position, though. He's 4.5 seconds ahead of Railgun. He needs to be 5.1 seconds ahead by the end of this. If Manuel Pedro makes this stick, it would be incredible. Using this alternate strategy to outrun a time penalty to the end. But the driver who's really been incredible today has been Dex Twilight. Has led all but a small handful of laps today from Mays going off strategy. Easy victory has been about a second a lap faster than everyone else. As they come to the checkered flag, Dex Twilight will take home the victory. Back-to-back wins here in X League GT3. And now we look at Manuel Pedro as he comes down to the final corner here. No one around him, but will Pedro be far enough ahead of Les Railgun to salvage the 2nd spot? Will Railgun bring it home in 2nd? Time penalties? No, Pedro did it! Pedro has clipped Railgun, so Pedro holds on for 2nd. Railgun will be 3rd. Mays, very far back, will be credited with 4th. And the fight between the 4 GTs, it looks like Cars Matthews has fallen off a bit, and Tempered Chip should be able to salvage a 5th place result here at the end of the day. Through the final corner, just to verify. 4 GT looks to the inside line, and there it is. 5th for Tempered Chip, 6th for Cars Matthew, 7th will go to Car Rebuilds, 8th looks like we'll go to Little Kid Suave. Yokomuku is going to be 9th, but not close enough to capitalize on any penalties. I think the only driver who might be able to steal a spot off penalties will be Breezy Rain, because TCPP Photo is going to take home 10th without issue. Agent Diesel is a little bit ahead of Breezy Rain here, so Breezy Rain might use time penalties to clip Agent Diesel for 11th. Yeah, that is the only swap off of time penalties, it seems. And Capsule Healer will be 13th, last of our drivers running. We're going to take a Twitch mandated ad break, and when we come back, we'll try to talk with our top 5 finishers here from Kylami. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Kylami. Our race is over, and we want to go ahead and start this off with talking with one of our podium finishers, Les Railgun. Railgun, go ahead, make sure your audio is included. Frustration. Not only were you able to not fight for the win, you got second clipped from you in the final moments of the race as well. What happened out there?
It's just a BOP issue, let's say. Of course, they had to buff the other cars to keep keep up with the faster cars from the last season. But I'd say the nerf they did on the Ford was not necessary if they were going to overbuff the other cars, you know. But it's almost on Kylami. It's most of the time issue with the car itself. It's too low to the ground. When it goes over the curbs, it just dies. Really not that good to drive the Ford GT on Kylami. It was the same thing on last season.
Yeah, I do remember seeing a lot of issues from the Ford here last season. So basically, unless there's a change to the BOP, you don't think there's any shot that you can go for another championship?
Yeah, it definitely has to. They have to take a look on the BOP. Spend a little bit more time in there. I don't know, a little bit extra. And yeah, but pretty much I got also screwed over a little bit at the start of the race. I don't know if you've seen it. You mean like cross the finish line or like the starting point at 60 miles?
Mm-hmm.
And I was at 48 hitting the first place's bumper. When they crossed the finish line, I was hitting the first place's bumper at 48 miles an hour. I was like, bro, everyone that was behind me, like perfect rebuild, they all got the run because I was right on the bumper of the first place. They weren't on the bumper. They like dodged us all and then went on. I got boxed in at the start. And shouldn't have happened. Oh.
All right. Well, one
What
second,
happened?
temper chip, and I'll get interviewed with you going. Yeah.
Did my voice glitch out or was it still going?
No,
Because I didn't see.
You're still going. you're still going.
Oh. Did you hear what I said?
Yes, I heard everything you said perfectly.
Yeah, that was pretty much that as well from the start of the race. But other than that, it was a good race anyway.
All right. Well, Railgun, at least it was a podium. At the bare minimum, you can hold your head high saying that with a car that seems to be
Yeah.
underpowered, you still pulled that off. Circuit not good here. Hopefully things end up going a little bit better for you next week, mate. Thanks for jumping in and talking with us.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, that is the word from Les Railgun, and now we're going to talk with our next highest finishing Ford GT, Tempered Ship. Ship, go ahead, include your audio. You can hear me still, right?
Yes, I can. Are you guys
All
able
right.
to hear me?
All right, yes, I hear you. All right, Ship, different story for you compared to Railgun. Railgun started up near the front and just kind of stayed there most of the day. You had to work your way up from about 9th to 5th. How in the world did you make that happen?
It was kind of funny. I mean, going into it, as being with Ford, we were kind of the strategy was kind of up in the air. We knew we wanted to start on mediums and push it as long as we could, but the option A and option B for us was either triple stint mediums or going what majority of I think the rest of the grid went with, which was a medium soft. We were able to push enough to where we were able to go into the triple mediums, and then it all kind of came down to pace. I got really lucky into the turn one. I was able to kind of hold my place, move through, let all the things happen around me, and then I kind of just latched onto the train of the top guys for the rest of that first stint, and then the rest of the race was just kind of holding my pace, doing the best I could to stay where I was. So.
Yeah, and we saw it got really interesting there at the end with you and your teammate Carr Matthews.
Yeah.
Your teammate Les Railgun seems to feel that the BOP changes for this season have massively, disproportionately affected the Fords. Do you feel the same way?
So yeah, I mean it's definitely affected the Fords. The Fords were very quick and very like it was a good car last season. The point of what I mean, Maze and I have working on. Maze has put a lot of work into doing the BOPs. He's the head of that. He's the head of the pro division, and he does BOP a lot. I help out a little bit. I'm the head of the PCS stuff. We've been trying to work on it, and really put some solid time into making sure all the cars are even. Something in the Aston might have slipped through because and also with the Ferrari as well. It's kind of weird because sometimes the settings in Forza get a little bit interesting. The Ferrari might have been a handicap issue. The Aston, I have no clue. I mean, Twilight is so quick in that thing, and the Ford, yes, at a disadvantage of what it was last season, but based off of what I've been seeing off of how we've set our pace in all the same cars amongst the grid and who's kind of tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 drivers, uh, pace-wise, the Ford is a lot more even to the rest of the grid. However, in comparison to Twilight, it's crazy different. So.
Yeah, Twilight was basically pulling a second a lap on everyone who wasn't Pedro. Do you have anything else you want to say, Ship, before we let you go for the night?
No, not really. I appreciate you doing all this and being a broadcaster. So thank you.
All right, thanks for jumping in and talking with us. And now I want to focus on our second place finisher, Manuel Pedro. Pedro, go ahead, include your audio. Fantastic run, outrunning a time penalty and an extra pit stop to still steal a second place result. How in the world did you pull that off?
Manuel. Translator, yeah.
Okay.
Ele falou que você fez um pit a mais do que o resto e ainda conseguiu fazer um P2. Como que você conseguiu fazer isso? Uhum. Uhum. Então, boa. He said that Ferrari in talking about lap times, it's the one of the quickest, but the tire wear is like two laps per stint. So for Ferrari, we needed to do an extra pit stop.
Well, you made that extra pit stop work fantastically. Did you know that you were going to outrun your time penalty at the very end?
Was yes, você entendeu? Você sabia que você ia conseguir tirar a vantagem do penal? Conseguir tirar o penal no final? Boa. He knew how much he needed to gain from the third place, but he wasn't certain he was gonna get it. But in the end, he achieved it. Yeah.
Well, Pedro, we may have been in South Africa, but with a gamble on yourself like that, maybe you should be going down to Las Vegas or Monaco, because that was a wild gamble, and you made that stick amazingly.
Ele falou que a gente pode estar na África do Sul, mas com essa gamble, com essa aposta que você fez, era melhor você ter ido pra Mônaco ou pra outro lugar pra jogar no cassino, tá ligado? Las Vegas. É. E. Mas o que você falou? Boa, boa. Eu não entendi, mas é nóis.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to say before we let you go for the night?
Você quer falar outra coisa? Algum comentário a mais? Pô, tava não. O grupo 2 é Ferrari. Mas é isso. Ah, ok. Yeah. He's saying that there are people in the grid saying that, crying about it, that maybe the handicap on the Ferrari car was bugged, but I don't, and that was the reason why he got P2. But we don't think it was that we don't think it was it. Was it? Yeah.
Well, I kind of have to agree with you on that. Maybe there was something else that was missed with balancing, but it did not look like the Ferraris were bugged, at least. The lap times were still competitive to everything else from what I saw. It just seemed like you had things working. Remember, there is a second Ferrari out there that struggled way more than you did, Pedro. So, yeah, maybe there is a balancing issue, but I don't think there was a bug that disproportionately advantaged the Ferraris tonight.
Yeah.
Hello.
It was, yeah.
Oh, that would
And it was
explain
me.
a lot.
Yeah.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. All right. Anyways, Pedro, thanks for jumping in and talking with us. I also want to go ahead and say to Car Rebuilds, thank you for jumping in and working as a translator as well to make things a little smoother. And I hope you both have a good night tonight.
Thanks, man. You too.
All right. I also want to, I also want to go ahead and turn our focus real quickly to Maze, who came home in fourth position, only driver with no time penalties over the course of the race, and continuing the streak of leading at least one lap in every event thus far this summer in X League. Maze, go ahead and include your audio. Well, you shifted your strategy from last night a bit. Do you think it worked or not?
I actually did the same thing, I think. I just had to run. I had to deal with a little extra tire wear. But yeah, I mean, going into it, I didn't know. Obviously, I don't know what everybody else is going to do. It's a rather short pit road, so I think it's like 22 seconds or so for a full pit. So I thought a lot of people would just maybe run softs the whole time, or maybe one stint of mediums and then the rest softs. But it seems like a lot of people did like just full medium straight out. And I was kind of gaming on not getting penalties and that having like being a positive for me and helping me out, gaining like a position or two at the end because I knew my tire wear was going to be a factor. But I opted to just do medium, medium, soft, and kind of struggle for a lap or two on each stint just to like avoid having to pit again. Kind of just be in my own world was my game. That was my main aim from the start, just kind of get to a place where I wasn't around anyone and just lap away and make no mistakes. And I honestly did all I could do. I can't really blame myself for making any mistakes. I had no penalties. I didn't really battle, but so much. I just kind of worked out how it worked out. And yeah, I mean, I'll take home P4. That's fine. Top 5, I'll take that all day long, considering who's on the grid, who's in the lobby. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with my result.
Yeah, that does seem to be true. It did seem like 4th was about the ceiling you guys could catch today, barring a yellow flag. I do want to go ahead and ask, because several other drivers have talked about, BOP issues. You're one of the drivers who helped set up the BOP this season. Do you think there's a BOP issue? Or do you think that your job has been done well and the issues are just some drivers are way better or way worse than they actually think they are?
Well, this is a whole nother can of worms that I could talk to you for an hour about, but I won't do that. I'll try to consolidate as much as possible. But as far as Twilight goes, I've raced with him in other leagues and in other, just online lobbies, and most of the time he's at my pace, if not a tenth or two faster on the mediums when I'm on softs. So I think he's just a bit of an outlier. But with that out of the way, yeah, I have done, hours upon hours of work, and I'm trying to consolidate this, but when I first started doing BOP for season 2, I spent one day, I kid you not, like 12, 14 hours straight, just lapping and lapping and lapping on different tracks and making upgrades and changing things and seeing what I could do to get the pace to be within 3-4 tenths across the board of all the tracks that we were going to run. And then that got ditched. And then we started trying to bring GT3 into the grid, and that's just, they have different downforce. It doesn't really work, so that didn't really work. And then I just got frustrated with how much work I was doing for it to get thrown away. And Shadow came in and started doing the BOP, and I'm technically still the head of BOP, but he was just like, just let me do it. You can confirm my work for me so you don't have to do so much. So he did his own thing, and then he got removed from that position. So I kind of had to start with like a week of time and just base everything off of his work. So I haven't really had the chance to sit down, and because this takes a ton of time, as you can imagine, to sit down from scratch and build the cars the way that I would prefer to build them. So I'm basically just making adjustments to things from last season where he had done the bulk of the work. And I'm not downplaying Shadow one bit. He's done a lot of work, and that's great. And we're obviously happy to have him do that and thankful that he did that. But it's just you can kind of see how my hands are kind of tied. And I personally run my own business in my real life, and I don't have hours upon hours upon hours to put into it again. But I am definitely open to people, like constructive criticism or whatever the case may be, because at the end of the day, my goal is to have the most fair grid. I personally want to beat someone because of my skill, not because of my car, and I'm sure the rest of the grid shares that thought process. So of course I'm open to discussion or questions or things being brought up to me. But as far as the BOP for now, Temper can probably attest to this. I've spent a good chunk of time, about like a week and a half of every day after work, just getting on the game until like 11 p.m. just lapping cars. So I think we're very close. I don't know. There is bugs sometimes with the car groups. I don't know if that happens tonight or not, but it's kind of hard to judge because the other Ferrari was on a different BOP for some reason. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'll take full responsibility if there's any problems, but at the same time, I want people to be aware of just how much work it takes, and I'm doing the best I can. So, yeah, that's I guess my consolidated thoughts on the matter.
Fair enough. Well, if you say you're taking advice, my advice is you should go ahead and buff the Ferrari by 50 PI points. And I'm totally not saying that because I'm a Ferrari mega fan and I sit for Ferrari in most racing series. All right, but no. In more serious talk, though, I completely understand. I host and set up a series of my own that I run usually once every year, and that's been going on for 3 seasons. And just trying to balance that in itself has been an absolute pain in the rear for year on year, especially now that I have a job of my own. So yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from, and I have complete sympathy for the circumstances, and hopefully things go a little bit better for you going forward. It is kind of a shame because you did have a good run today. You led laps again, a very unexpected stat that you continue on with, but it's kind of a shame that your good run has kind of been derailed by all this talk about, oh, is the BOP good or not? Is there anything else you want to say, good or bad, before we go ahead and let you go for the night?
Yeah, I mean, when I joined the league, I just wanted to race, and I kind of got put into a staff role, and then I noticed that the cars were just way off, like the deltas between them were just way off, right? So I don't want to say weaseled my way into that position because I didn't really want to be there, but I was happy to do it when I was asked, but I didn't know that, my work was going to be like, I do BOP and then it gets tossed and then I have to chime in, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just a lot of work that I struggle to continue to put time into if it's not going to stay. So, yes, I'm happy to be the person that people want to yell at. That's fine. My DMs are always open. If anybody's watching the stream that races, that's fine. Bring up things. I have plenty of data to show you my findings, and if we find something that needs to be tested, I'm happy to do it. That's no problem. So, yeah, but at the end of the day, proud of my race. Happy with the top 5. I'm always happy with the top 5 with the people on the grid, like I said before. I even got to see my buddy Tempered behind me and in front of me at times. And I'm happy for him. He put out a pretty good position at the end of the race considering his circumstances in the first race. So thrilled for him. Happy for everyone else. Thank you for you doing what you do because you're amazing at it. And yeah, that's all I got, man.
All right. Well, that'll pretty much wrap up our post-race interviews then. For those of you who want more racing, don't worry. Tomorrow night we will be back with FEC's IndyCar Summer Series as well. And actually, we'll come back. We'll be back with the Porsche Cup on Friday night and another GT3 race on Saturday night. But until next time, I've been your host for today's broadcast, Insanely 13. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Farewell and goodbye, everyone.